The year is 2008. The place is a hotel ballroom in Moline, Illinois. The air is thick with the smell of expensive steak and self-congratulation. This is the John Deere North American Dealer of the Year Awards banquet. 1,000 dealers in dark suits. They represent billions in annual sales. Tractors, combines, planters. The lifeblood of American agriculture, painted green and yellow. On stage, a vice president of marketing is reading from a card. His voice is smooth, practiced. He announces the finalists. Dealers from Iowa, from Saskatchewan, from the Mississippi Delta. Then he holds up the envelope. The winner. He clears his throat. For outstanding growth, for customer satisfaction, for community involvement, the 2008 North American Dealer of the Year is, he pauses for effect, Schmidt Ag Services of Sterling, Colorado. Polite applause ripples through the room. A man gets up from a table in the back. He walks toward the stage. He is older now. His hair is white. His face is a map of wind and sun. He wears a simple suit that doesn't quite fit his shoulders. As he walks, people notice something. His left sleeve. It is neatly pinned at the elbow. He climbs the stairs with a steady gait. He shakes the vice president's hand. His right hand is strong, calloused. The VP hands him the heavy glass trophy. He turns to the microphone. The VP looks down at his note card. The card has the winner's prepared remarks. He squints. He looks at it again. He leans toward his colleague. Is this right? The man at the microphone says nothing. He just waits. The VP looks back at the card. The teleprompter is blank. The dealer provided no speech, just a short note to be read. The VP leans into his own microphone. His smooth voice cracks just a little. Mr. Schmidt's prepared statement is... He stops. The room is silent. The statement is just 4 words. The dirt is enough. He looks up at the one-armed man, Leo Schmidt, who just nods once. The applause that follows is confused at first. Then it grows. Because this story isn't about an award. It's about what happened 50 years earlier. When a John Deere dealer took a tractor away from this same man, not out of malice, not out of greed, but because he was certain he was doing the right thing. He was certain he was being kind. This channel tells the stories of people who were underestimated, people who were told no, people who responded not with anger, but with decades of work. If these are the stories you need to hear, subscribe to this channel. Because the story of Leo Schmidt is the story of a quiet fight, the loneliest fight there is, proving someone wrong who thinks they are helping you. Let's go back to 1958, to a small farm outside Sterling, Colorado. The land is flat, the sky is big, the wind never stops. This is dry land wheat country. You don't get rich here, you just endure. Leo Schmidt was 14 years old. He had known work his entire life. He had also known loss. At age 7, a grain auger had taken his left arm. He remembered the shock, the pain, and then the quiet determination of his father, Carl. Carl Schmidt never treated his son like he was broken. He just adapted the world to him. He taught him to tie his shoes with one hand, to swing an axe, to drive their John Deere Model 620 tractor. He'd sit Leo on his lap. Now, son, one good hand is better than 2 lazy ones. Remember that. And Leo did. He learned to feel the clutch with his boot, to gauge the depth of the plow by the sound of the engine. He could do the work of any 2-handed boy his age. He just did it differently. Life was hard, but it was predictable. Until the day it wasn't. October of 1958. Harvest was almost in. Carl Schmidt, age 42, came in from the field for lunch. He sat down at the kitchen table. He told his wife the wheat looked good this year. Then he put his head down on the table, and he was gone. A heart attack, sudden, final. The world stopped. The wind kept blowing. The wheat still stood in the field. The funeral was a blur of casseroles and quiet pity. Neighbors came and finished the harvest, an act of kindness that felt like a final goodbye. Everyone knew what came next. The widow would sell the farm. She and the boy would move to town. It was the sensible thing to do, the only thing to do. A one-armed boy and his grieving mother couldn't run 160 acres. It was impossible. A few days after the funeral, Leo sat at the kitchen table. His father's empty chair was a hole in the universe. His mother was in the bedroom, a place she rarely left. On the table was a piece of paper. A bill from Miller's John Deere. Payment due for the Model 620. $112.50. Leo knew where his father kept the money. In a tin box in the machine shed. He found it. He counted out the cash. $112.02. He put the money in his pocket. He told his mother he was going to town. She just nodded. He walked the 2 miles to the county road. He hitched a ride into Sterling. He knew what he had to do. He had to make the payment. Because the tractor was everything. Without the tractor, the land was just dirt. He walked into Miller's John Deere. The showroom was immaculate. Sunlight gleamed off the green and yellow paint. The air smelled of new tires and diesel fuel. Frank Miller stood behind the counter. Frank was a pillar of the community, a deacon at the Lutheran church. He sponsored the Little League team. He knew every farmer by name, knew their children, knew their yields. He was a good man, a decent man. He saw Leo walk in. His face, normally ready with a smile, softened with pity. Leo, son. He walked around the counter. He put a hand on the boy's shoulder. I am so sorry about your father. He was a fine man. Leo nodded. He couldn't speak. He just reached into his pocket and pulled out the cash. He laid it on the counter. The bills were worn. The quarters were dull. It's for the 620, Mr. Miller. The payment. Frank Miller looked at the money. Then he looked at Leo. He looked at the boy's thin shoulders. He looked at the empty sleeve, pinned neatly just like his mother taught him. He didn't touch the money. He sighed, a deep, fatherly sigh. Son, let's talk for a minute. He led Leo to his office in the back. The walls were covered in awards, framed photos of his family. He gestured for Leo to sit. Leo remained standing. Frank sat down. He steepled his fingers. Leo, your father was a good farmer. But this is a tough business. It's a tough business for a man with 2 good hands. He paused, letting the words hang in the air. This farm, it's too much for you. It's too much debt for your mother to carry. The kindest thing you can do for her right now is let it go. Leo finally found his voice. We can make the payments. I can do the work. Frank shook his head slowly, not with pity, with certainty. No, son, you can't. Farming is a 2-handed job. You know that. Operating a plow, a combine, it's dangerous. I've been doing this for 30 years. I've seen men get hurt, strong men. I am not going to be the man who sells a piece of equipment that gets you killed. I'm not going to be the man who lets you fail. Leo just stood there. His hand was still on the cash in his pocket. Frank reached for the telephone on his desk. He looked at Leo with genuine concern in his eyes. He truly believed what he was doing was an act of mercy. "I'm protecting you, son. I'm protecting your mother from a heartache she doesn't need right now." Then he picked up the phone. He called the bank. He told them Carl Schmidt had passed. He told them the family was surrendering the tractor. He said he had it there at the dealership. The Repo truck could pick it up in the afternoon. He hung up the phone. He stood up. "Now, you take that money home to your mother. She's going to need it." He tried to put a hand on Leo's shoulder again. Leo stepped back. He turned and walked out of the office. He walked through the showroom, past the new tractors he would never be allowed to own. He walked out into the sunlight. He didn't cry. Not then. The anger was a cold, hard stone in his gut. It wasn't anger at Frank Miller's cruelty. It was anger at his kindness. A kindness that felt like being buried alive. He walked home. He didn't try to hitch a ride. He needed the miles. He needed the dust and the wind. Halfway there, a flatbed truck from the bank rumbled past him, headed for his farm, to take the tractor. His father's tractor. He watched until the dust swallowed it. He got home late in the afternoon. The Model 620 was gone from the shed. The space it occupied felt enormous. His grandfather was sitting on the porch. The old man had come to stay after the funeral. He was a man of few words. He had hands like old leather. He watched Leo walk up the path. He saw the look on the boy's face. He didn't have to ask. He went to Miller's. Leo's voice was flat. He took the tractor, said I couldn't run it, said he was protecting us. His grandfather stared out at the field for a long time. The sun was setting. The stubble glowed gold. He didn't say Frank Miller was wrong. He didn't say it wasn't fair. He just put a heavy hand on Leo's good shoulder. He looked at the dirt, the rich, dark soil of their 160 acres. Then he spoke. His voice was quiet, but it was final. They took the tractor. They didn't take the dirt. The dirt is enough. That winter was the longest of Leo's life. The grief was a constant ache. The silence in the house was deafening. But his grandfather's words had planted a seed. The dirt is enough. It became a mantra, a promise. One afternoon, his grandfather led him to the back of the old barn. Covered in a canvas tarp was a skeleton of a tractor, an old Alice Chalmers Model C from 1941. It hadn't run in a decade. The orange paint was faded to rust. The tires were cracked and flat. "We start here," the old man said. And so they did. They worked by the light of a single bare bulb. The cold was so deep it hurt their bones. They pulled the engine apart, piece by piece. The cylinders were scored. The rings were shot. Leo learned the feel of every nut, every bolt. He learned how to hold a wrench with his knees, how to use his body for leverage. He learned that his one good hand could be smarter and stronger than two careless ones. They needed parts they couldn't afford. His grandfather took him to see Gus Hoffman. Gus ran the small Alice Chalmers shop in town. It was a dusty, cluttered place. Gus was old, cantankerous, and hated Frank Miller. He saw it as a battle of David and Goliath, the green giant versus the little guy. He listened to Leo's story. He looked at the boy's determination. He looked at the grease under his fingernails. "Frank Miller is an arrogant fool," Gus grumbled. "He thinks he's God's gift to farming. Let's show him what a real farmer can do." Gus gave them the parts they needed, at his cost. A new piston sleeve, rings, gaskets. He even found them 2 decent used tires. "Don't you tell anyone I helped you," he said. "I've got a reputation to maintain." The biggest challenge wasn't the engine, it was the controls. A Model C was built for 2 hands. The hand clutch was on the left, the hydraulic lift was on the right. Leo couldn't operate both at once. This is where ingenuity was born from necessity. Leo and his grandfather spent weeks designing a new system. They took the hand clutch lever off. They ran a series of rods and linkages down to the floor. They fabricated a foot pedal, like in a car. Now Leo could clutch with his left foot. They moved the hydraulic levers, welded extensions onto them, brought them all to the right side, within easy reach of his one hand. But the steering was the real problem. How could he steer and operate the plow lift at the end of a row? He needed to be able to let go of the wheel for a few seconds. His grandfather had an idea. Simple. Brilliant. They took the steering wheel off. They drilled a series of small holes in a circle around the base. Then they mounted a spring-loaded pin to the dashboard. Leo could turn the wheel to where he wanted it, pull the pin, and it would lock the steering straight. To release it, he just pulled the pin out again. It was his own power steering, forged from scrap metal and desperation. By March of 1959, it was ready. The tractor was a Frankenstein's monster of welds and mismatched parts. But when Leo hit the starter, the little 4-cylinder engine coughed, sputtered, and roared to life. The sound echoed in the quiet farmyard. It was the sound of defiance. The sound of a future that Frank Miller had tried to take away. Leo drove it out of the barn. The steering was stiff, the foot clutch was awkward. But it worked. He could run it. He could farm. The dirt was enough. When Leo Schmidt drove that ugly orange tractor into the field that spring, the whole county was watching. Neighbors slowed their trucks on the county road to get a look. The talk at the co-op was divided. Most of them sided with Frank Miller. "It's a fool's errand. That boy is going to kill himself on that contraption. His mother should put a stop to it. She's letting him chase a ghost. Frank Miller did him a favor, whether he knows it or not." The doubters were loud. They spoke with the confidence of conventional wisdom. The supporters were quiet. They were the older farmers, the ones who remembered the dirty 30s, the ones who had built their own farms from nothing. They didn't say much. They just watched. They watched Leo plow. His first rows were crooked. He struggled at the turns. The custom steering lock worked, but it was slow. But he kept going, dawn to dusk. He learned the rhythm of his new machine. He learned to anticipate the turns. His rows got straighter. He planted his 160 acres of wheat. He cultivated it. He prayed for rain, and the rain came. That fall, he hired a neighbor with a combine to do the harvest. He couldn't afford his own yet. He hauled the grain to town himself in a borrowed truck. He waited for the weigh ticket. The yield was 28 bushels to the acre. The county average that year was 32. He hadn't beaten anyone. He hadn't set any records, but he hadn't failed. He paid his property taxes. He bought groceries. He put enough money back in the tin box to buy seed for next year. He had no debt, not one penny. Frank Miller saw the numbers at the co-op. He felt a pang of something he couldn't quite name. It wasn't regret, not yet. It was confusion. The boy should have failed. He was sure of it. Have you ever been told you couldn't do something? Not by an enemy, but by a friend. By someone who thought they were protecting you from disappointment. Someone who had already decided your limits for you. What do you do with that? You can't fight it with anger. You can't argue against their good intentions. You can only do what Leo Schmidt did. You pick up your tools. You get to work. and you let the results speak for themselves, even if it takes a lifetime. Tell us your story in the comments below, because what happened next wasn't about revenge. It was about building something that doubt couldn't tear down. Let me tell you about the next 40 years, because this is where the story becomes bigger than one boy and one tractor. It becomes a quiet revolution. 1962. Leo is 18. The farm next door, 80 acres, goes into foreclosure. Leo goes to the bank auction. He buys it. Paid cash. Money he saved for 3 years. 1965. He buys a used Alice Chalmers 190 tractor. Bigger. Stronger. He spends the winter in his shop. He builds his own one-handed control system. Better than the first one. Paid cash for the tractor. 1970. Leo is 26. He's married now, to a school teacher named Sarah. He farms 480 acres. He has 2 young sons. They ride on the tractor with him, just like he did with his father. He's known for being frugal, for being smart. He fixes his own equipment. He builds what he can't buy. Frank Miller drives past the Schmidt place on his way to church on Sundays. He sees the new grain bins. He sees the well-tended fields. He sees the growing fleet of orange machinery. He never stops. He just watches from a distance. The witness who watches. 1975. Leo buys another 320 acres, paid cash. His grandfather passes away. At the funeral, Leo says just one thing. He told me the dirt was enough. He was right. 1981. The farm crisis begins. Interest rates soar. Commodity prices collapse. The countryside is filled with auction notices. His neighbors are in trouble. They were convinced by men like Frank Miller to expand on credit, to buy the newest, biggest green tractors. They have massive payments. Leo has no payments. He owns his land. He owns his iron. He owes no one. The crisis that breaks his neighbors makes him stronger. 1985. He buys 2 farms from the bank, the same bank that once held the note on his father's tractor. Another 640 acres, paid cash. He now farms over 1,400 acres. His sons, Carl and David, work alongside him. They learn his system. Efficiency, ingenuity, independence. They don't just learn how to farm, they learn how to think. 1990. Frank Miller retires. He sells the dealership to his son, Tom. Tom is a good salesman, but he doesn't have his father's reputation, and the business is built on a mountain of debt. 1995. Leo Schmidt is one of the largest independent operators in the county. He's a pioneer in no-till farming, in water conservation. People from the university come to study his methods. He still drives orange tractors. In the 37 years since he was turned away, he has never once set foot inside the John Deere dealership. Not once. The quiet accumulation of decades. That is how you answer a doubt spoken in kindness. You build a fortress of results, brick by brick, acre by acre, year by year, until the original slight is just a footnote, a story you tell your grandchildren. The year is 1998. The farm economy is in another downturn. Tom Miller is losing the dealership, the business his father built. The bank is calling the note. He's desperate. He sits in his office, the same office where his father sat 40 years earlier. He looks at his list of customers, and he sees one name that has never been on it: Leo Schmidt. He knows the story. Everyone in town knows the story. It's a local legend. The one-armed boy and the orange tractor. Tom gets in his truck. He drives out to the Schmidt farm. It's a massive operation now. Huge machine sheds, towering grain silos. A stark contrast to the small, struggling farm he remembers from his childhood. He finds Leo in the main shop. He's in his 50s now. Strong, weathered. He's working on an engine, his one good hand moving with practiced precision. Tom Miller stands there for a moment, unsure what to say. Leo looks up. He wipes his hand on a rag. Tom. He says the name without any emotion, just a statement of fact. Tom launches into his pitch. He's desperate. He needs help. Maybe Leo could buy a new fleet of combines, a dozen tractors, something to show the bank he has business. Or maybe co-sign a loan, just to get him through the year. Leo listens. He doesn't interrupt. He just stands there, holding the greasy rag. When Tom is finished, the shop is silent except for the ticking of a cooling engine. Leo looks at Tom, not with anger, not with pity, with a devastating clarity. Your father was a good man. He coached my little league team. He always had a kind word. Leo pauses. The day he took my father's tractor, he thought he was protecting me. He told me I couldn't run a farm with one arm. He said he wasn't going to be the man who let me fail. Leo takes a step closer. But he never asked me if I could. He just decided for me. He decided my future in that office. He was certain. And there is nothing in this world more powerful than a good man's certainty. Tom Miller looks down at the concrete floor. He is ashamed. For his father. For himself. I know. It's all he can say. Leo looks around his shop, at the tools, the machinery, the empire he built with his one good hand. I'm not going to buy your tractors, Tom. And I'm not going to co-sign your loan. Tom's shoulders slump. He expected this. But Leo isn't finished. But I will make you an offer. I will buy the dealership. Everything. The building, the inventory, the land. I will pay you a fair price. And I will pay it in cash. Leo Schmidt bought the John Deere dealership. The place he had been thrown out of 40 years before. The first thing he did was not to fire everyone. He kept the mechanics, the parts manager. He told them, "We're here to serve farmers, no matter what color their tractor is." The second thing he did was take down the sign. The big, iconic John Deere sign. He put up a new one, a simple sign. It said, Schmidt AG Services. He still sold John Deere, but he also brought in AGCO, the company that now owned Alice Chalmers. He put the green tractors and the orange tractors side by side in the showroom. The old-timers in the county just shook their heads and smiled. But Leo wasn't done. This wasn't about settling a score. It was about building a legacy. He started a scholarship fund at the local high school. He called it the One Good Hand Scholarship. It was for any student going into agriculture who had overcome a physical challenge, or poverty, or doubt. Each year, he would personally hand a check for $10,000 to a kid everyone else had written off. He became a mentor to young farmers just starting out. His advice was always the same. Own your dirt. Own your iron. Owe no one. Don't ever let a man in an office decide what you are capable of. His own sons took over the farming operation. It grew to over 10,000 acres. His daughter, who had a business degree, took over running the dealership. Schmidt Ag Services became the most respected business in the region, known for its honesty, known for its fairness. They had a policy: They never turned someone away just because their situation looked hard. They never assumed someone's limits. They asked, they listened, and then they helped. Today, if you walk into the office of that dealership, the place is modern, computers humming, part schematics on big screens. But on the wall behind the main desk, mounted on a piece of polished barnwood, is a strange object, a rusty old steering wheel from a tractor. It has a series of small, crudely drilled holes around its base. Next to it is a metal pin on a spring. A young farmer, waiting to sign papers for his first tractor, asks what it is. Leo's daughter, a woman now in her 50s with her father's clear eyes, smiles. "That was my father's power steering," she says. She reaches up and touches it. The cold, rough metal. A physical link to the past. A reminder that the greatest innovations don't come from corporate research labs. They come from a cold barn in the middle of winter. They are born from necessity, from defiance, from the simple, powerful refusal to be told what you cannot do. We go back to that ballroom in Moline, Illinois, 2008. Leo Schmidt stands on the stage, holding his award. He has said nothing. The vice president has read his 4-word statement. The dirt is enough. In the audience, some people are starting to understand. The older dealers, the ones who know the stories, the legends. They know this isn't just about selling tractors. It's about what the tractor represents. A tool of independence. A chance to make a life from the soil. A promise that Frank Miller, with all his good intentions, had tried to break. Leo didn't give a speech about his struggle. He didn't talk about the decades of work. He didn't mention Frank Miller's name. He didn't have to. His presence on that stage was the speech. The pinned sleeve was the speech. The 4 words were the speech. The most dangerous limitation is the one imposed by someone who genuinely believes they are protecting you. It isn't cruelty that holds us back most often. It is certainty. The certainty of others about what we can and cannot do. It cannot be fought with anger. It cannot be defeated in an argument. It can only be disproven. With decades of quiet work, with results that speak for themselves, with a life lived beyond the boundaries that were drawn for you. Right now, somewhere in the world, a young person is being told no, not because they are wrong, but because the person telling them no is afraid for them. They are being protected from their own potential. Maybe that someone is you. Maybe you have a Frank Miller in your life, someone whose kindness is a cage. What do? You remember Leo Schmidt. You find your own piece of dirt, whatever that is. Your talent, your idea, your stubborn refusal to quit. And you get to work. Because in the end, the dirt is always enough. If this story reminded you of someone in your own life, subscribe to our channel. There are millions of stories like this one that need to be told. Drop a comment below and tell us about a time you or someone you know proved a well-meaning doubter wrong. And finally, share this story with one person. Someone who needs to be reminded that they should never let anyone else decide their limits for them. Someone who needs to hear, right now, that what they have inside them is enough.